Let's give all of our fine distinguished people and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've just become personally acquainted this morning with one of our distinguished speakers. I've had considerable correspondence with him and some telephone conversation relating to the event today. And I'm so happy to learn, after our greetings this morning, that a greater part of his life has been spent in the legal profession. He was an outstanding member of the bar of both the state of Missouri and the state of Kansas. He was a long-time attorney for TWA. He is now the president of the Federal Reserve Bank at Kansas City, Missouri. It somehow, in some way, his path crossed many years ago with the distinguished principal chief of our nation. They became fast friends, and in recent months have conferred and discussed the feasibility and the thought of doing something of credit to the people, the Cherokee people in the state of Oklahoma, and to the Federal Reserve System to commemorate the outstanding and distinguished services of former Senator Robert Owen. And now these conversations between these two noble and great men have come to this event today. It is my pleasure and my privilege to present to this audience the Honorable George H. Clay, President of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, Missouri. Mr. Pruitt, Chief Keeler, Reverend Sanders, and Colonel Hagerstown. When I got out of the car up here and felt the chilly wind, I threw away my 250-page speech. It is true that we often sit at football games on days like this, but that's different. You can move around and you can get up and you can yell. Now the only thing you can do to keep warm while I make these few remarks is to clap. I really am pleased to be here today representing the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City and the Federal Reserve System at the dedication of this memorial to the late Senator from Oklahoma, Robert Latham Owen. Both William McChesney Martin, immediate past chairman of the Federal Reserve System, and the present chairman, Arthur F. Burns, have asked that I express their regret at being unable to attend these ceremonies and their gratification that this long-delayed memorial is now being dedicated. Shortly before Mr. Martin retired as chairman of the Federal Board of Governors, he told me that he had long felt that Senator Owen should be memorialized, that he had had conversations concerning this fact with Senator Mike Monroney and Chief Keeler, but due to the press of other matters, the establishment of such a memorial had not been accomplished. He furnished me with his file and asked me to pursue the matter. Within a few months, after Chairman Burns took office, he was in Kansas City. At that time, he expressed regret at the fact that the contributions of Senator Owen had not been adequately recognized. He was pleased to learn that this memorial marker was in process and that the Federal Reserve System had had a part in it. It is appropriate that this memorial is located here, in the area where Senator Owen began and pursued his career as teacher, editor, lawyer, banker, businessman, and statesman. Here in Oklahoma, where on December the 11th, 1907, the state legislature, with all members present and voting, unanimously elected Mr. Owen as one of its first two United States senators. The Congressional Directory of December 1970 lists Robert Latham Owen as of Dutch, Irish, and Indian ancestry, and his mother as of the Cherokee Nation. So it is appropriate that this memorial be located here at the new Cherokee Cultural Center. We of the Federal Reserve System are pleased to have a part in this undertaking with the Cherokee Nation to honor Senator Owen's memory because he was a principal originator and author of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, and perhaps just as important, as chairman of the Senate Committee on Banking and Currency, he was instrumental in guiding the Glass-Owen bill, which became the Federal Reserve Act, through the legislative shoals to enactment. You can get an idea of the difficulty of that task in a quote from Mr. Glass. It was hard enough to get through anyhow. It was the most terrific fight that ever was had. We got it through in the face of the opposition of nearly every bank in the United States. Senator Owen was prepared to fight such a fight. He was a banker, having organized the First National Bank of Muskogee in 1890. This was the first national bank in Indian Territory, and he became its first president, which position he occupied for 10 years. Following that, his interest in monetary matters had been increased by the money panic of 1893, when his bank, like many others, suffered heavy deposit withdrawals. In 1896, he unsuccessfully urged the Democratic Convention in Chicago to adopt a plank in its platform pledging the Democratic Party to protect the country from financial panic. In 1898, 9 years before he became a United States Senator, he visited the central banks of England, France, and Germany with a view to finding out how they function in terms of providing an elastic currency and protecting the economies of those countries from financial panic and from either inflationary or deflationary movements. He visited Canada, where there was no central bank, to learn whether and how the small number of large commercial banks endeavored to promote a degree of stability through providing an elastic currency. Senator Owen was not just a banker, but a thorough student of banking. He was not just a senator, but understood the close interrelation between economics and the process of government. He understood the politics of government. He was a persuasive lawyer. He believed that for the nation to prosper, men must work, economize, and create value. But this could only happen in a nation where the money was stable and therefore of a known store of value. He combined these beliefs and this knowledge and these talents to advance many ideas for national and international legislation which would aid in attaining these ends. Many of these ideas, which could not be passed at the time, have since become law. For example, he proposed to control market speculation by raising margins rather than limiting total credit to the economy. And he proposed several systems to insure depositors against loss. Other proposals are still annually debated in our legislative halls. The Federal Reserve Act was not his idea of a perfect law, and he worked ceaselessly to the end of his career to improve it. Yet today, over 58 years and over 80 amendments later, it serves the nation and its people well. It is fitting that we here today memorialize his service to the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. Thank you very much. Yes, thanks indeed to Mr. Clay for that very fine assessment of the business and senatorial career of our great late Senator Owen. introducing the next speaker on the program, who will be the concluding speaker, as Marty has planned it, I note that our longtime friend and great former senator of Oklahoma has come to the platform. I read in the paper yesterday where Mike had announced that he would come here from Washington. He's come a long way to be here at this initial ceremony on behalf of all the Cherokees and the people of Oklahoma, which Marty and Chief Keeler and others have commenced to perpetuate the memory of this great man here and others yet to come. It's worth of note in mentioning the career of Senator Mulroney, the fact that he served in the Congress of the United States so well that he was voted by the members of the press, all of the great columnists and others, as the finest congressman in the Congress of the United States. He was later elected to the United States Senate and served this nation and our state nobly and well. Let's have a few words from Honorable Mike Mulroney.
Well, Boyd, thank you very much for those flattering remarks. Chief Keeler, Mr. Clay, distinguished guests. It is great to be here on an occasion like this to greet you, to pass along the greetings and deep regrets to William McChesney Martin, who for many, many years has been chairman of the Federal Reserve Board in Washington. Unfortunately, his term has expired. He's now engaged in reorganizing the procedures of the New York Stock Exchange. And he said he had his hands too full for that plate of worms to be able to get off for even a day to come down and participate in this. Along with Chief Keeler and others, he was the motivating spirit in making possible this long delayed but very much deserved tribute to a great man of great genius. And this is not a guess, it has stood the test through many, many depressions and brought our economy out better than any economies of the rest of the world have come through these things. It has helped to arrest the depression that we are in. And the prescience of mind of this great man, I think, will long live in history, and I'm so happy it's being done. Mr. Burns, the President Chairman, asked to be remembered on this occasion, and he too could not get away. It seems to me that there's one item that may have been overlooked. One of the first men I had the pleasure of calling on was Senator Robert L. Owen when 32 years ago I went to the Congress of the United States. We became friends, and you know, almost blind, what he was trying to do. He was developing a global alphabet where all the characters of all the world's languages would be uniform. And he said we can have peace if the peoples of the world can communicate. But how can we have peace when we have some 300 or 400 different alphabets and no one can read what the others are saying? It's my privilege to put things in the congressional record and to mail out by the tens of thousands at his expense for the printing to carry forward this global alphabet idea. Unfortunately for the world, he passed away before it could be accepted around the world. I just want to mention that to show what a great mind, not only financial, but his love for his fellow man, for better conditions for all men. And I'm so glad that this group of friends, Cherokees and others, can respect a man on this date that's brought so much to so many people so selfishly. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mulroney. Very few of us have had the opportunity to learn of the fact that just mentioned by Senator Mulroney, the fact that Senator Owen, for many years before he said that, Mulroney stated, gave earnest thought and attention to the development of a global alphabet. I'd forgotten all about that. I thankfully recall that I had read that fact, and that he mentioned it once or twice in it, but I still hadn't forgotten about it. Now, my friends, it's not only always a pleasure, but it's one of the easiest functions that I've had over the years to perform, is to introduce the next gentleman. He's my longtime friend. He is a man of great vision. Most of his time and the exercise of that vision has been expended in behalf of his beloved Cherokee people. It's my hope that as we listen to his speech today, that some of these youngsters here take further in great heart and find something that will inspire them in their educational work that just lies ahead, and that in the days to come, our descendants will be coming back here to do the same thing and perpetuate your memory. And you can do it if you only take hold of the educational features and facilities that are at your hands out here in Owen in the state of Oklahoma. My friend, let's hear the great chief of the nation, Honorable WWD.
Thank you very much, Earl. Reverend Sanders, George, Clay, Colonel Hagerstrand, and particularly am I happy, Mike, that you were able to make it here, because I think it would have been a terrible tragedy had we not had the man that originated this idea here today with us. And we appreciate it, Mike, for coming all this distance. You know, I don't believe I've ever had my hands so cold since the time that I got out of the duck blind and one of my boots hung up and I fell in that icy water. I feel just something like that right now. It's certainly a proud occasion, I think, for Oklahomans, and especially for Oklahomans of Cherokee ancestry, because we're honoring one of the great past statesmen of our country. And that statesman was both an Oklahoman and a Cherokee. George, I want to thank you for those splendid remarks. I appreciate the fact that you would be here on this occasion. And they certainly show why I call Senator Owen the statesman. And there's little I can add to your account of his contributions to his state and to his nation. Now, what I'd like to do is comment just briefly on what Senator Owen's life has meant to Cherokees, and more importantly, what it can mean to all of us. To the Cherokee, Senator Owen was known as Conostosa. Is that right? Good. This name was given to him by his mother, and is the name of the greatest of the early day chiefs and a distant ancestor of the senator. The senator's mother, Narcissus Chisholm Owen, was only part Cherokee, but she lived her early life among Indian people in the Indian Territory and was immensely proud of her Cherokee background. So it was natural that she gave her son a famous Cherokee name. And she passed to him her great pride in her people and deep commitment to serving them. Senator Owen carried out this commitment from almost the beginning to the end of his life, and every Cherokee today is a beneficiary of what he did. Shortly after he graduated with high honors from Washington Lee University, he came to this region and began serving as a teacher at the Cherokee Orphanage at Salina. This was when the orphanage was full of young Cherokees orphaned by the Civil War. It became, as the senator himself termed it, the finest ornament of the Cherokee people. This was due partly to his own efforts. The Senator also served education of young Cherokees as supervisor of the Cherokee Nation school system. Later, he became Indian agent for the 5 civilized tribes. He then served the Cherokees as an attorney. Through his efforts, the Eastern Cherokees fought and won a judgment in the U.S. Supreme Court for some $5 million. The largest judgment ever given in Indian claim up to then. He later helped win a judgment for the Western Cherokees for $800,000. He was instrumental in having the Trans-Mississippi Congress adopt a resolution favoring removal of restrictions for most Indians. He drew up the act giving U.S. citizenship to every Indian in Indian Territory. These were big jobs, but there's no telling how many thousands of things he did for individual Cherokees and their families as an attorney. And he didn't let down when he became a senator. The plight of his people was always in his mind, and he helped them in numerous ways during his tenure in the Senate and during his later years after retirement. So we of Cherokee descent have special reason to thank Senator Owen and to honor him for what he did for his people. More importantly, all of us today can gain something from this man to help us in living during these troubling times. This is because Senator Owen had some outstanding traits that should inspire us to live better. Let me say at this point, I'm glad to see so many of our young people here, particularly young Cherokees in the audience. I recognize that young people have values and points of view that are different from those in the past. I do not criticize this. I think it's well for young people to question adult assumptions, which may no longer be useful, and to come up with new ways of looking at things in this changing world. At the same time, it is important to realize that many of the values and goals of the past remain worthwhile despite the passage of time and the pace of change. Young people especially can learn from the life of Senator Owen, for he was a man who knew the secret of joining the best of the old with the best of the new. Senator Owen was ahead of his time. He was a forward-looking thinker, a progressive in the finest sense of the word. There's a story that the senator used to tell on himself that shows he was eager to be ahead of his time from the beginning. Officially, the date of the senator's birth is February 2nd, 1856. However, the senator used to say that although he was born on midnight on the 2nd, it was reported that the clock had already struck, and that this thrust his birth into the following day, the 3rd. So even at birth, he was ahead of his time, and this marked his whole career. His thinking and action on Indian affairs, banking, health, education, rural and labor problems, and international relations were in advance of his day. However, the senator also lived by certain traditional values, which are always valid. He had tremendous respect for his family. He spoke of his divine mother and noble father. Now, I imagine the parents had faults, just as all parents do. But he looked for the good in them, the traits that could inspire and improve it. Senator Owen was dedicated to his country, to its ideals of freedom and equality. He said himself that he firmly believed in the principle, equal rights to all, special privileges to none. Senator Owen recognized the value of talking with and listening to other people to learn from them instead of quickly judging them and tuning them out. In a nutshell, he believed in communication. During his final years, he worked on this global alphabet, which Mike has mentioned to us, and which incidentally I will ask our editor, Sue Thomas, please us to have a story on that in our Cherokee Nation News. I think that this last dream shows how he was committed to the need for better understanding among people. Senator Owen's life was also marked by the time-tested value of perseverance and determination, no matter what the odds. The story is told that as a brand new member of the debating team of Washington Lee University, Robert Owen got up for his first speech. He blurted out, "Ladies and gentlemen," but nothing more came. He stood there silent and shaking while the audience began shouting catcalls at him. Now, most young men would have turned pale and walked off by then. But young Owen stood his ground, got himself together, and turned in a performance that day that won him the gold medal for the day. Now, this is the kind of determination that stayed with him and the kind that should inspire us today. The senator recognized the value of self-esteem. His biographer relates that he was proud of his Cherokee heritage, proud of being an American. He believed in his ability to do a job and to do it well. This included even the presidency of the United States, for as you know, in 1920, he offered himself as a Democratic candidate for this high office. Finally, Senator Owen believes in God and his moral laws. He no doubt was influenced this way by his mother. She was a woman of great faith as well as one of rich talent. She was a musician, a painter, writer, and a lover of nature. She objects strongly to the myth that Indians were nothing but a bunch of wild savages. When she was 82 years old, she delighted in saying, "I myself, a Cherokee, have done my painting, not in a teepee, but in the Corcoran building on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington City." Now we're soon going to hear by tape some words from Senator Owen in his own voice. I would like to close my remarks by quoting some verses written by his mother. I think the senator would have approved of this, but more importantly, I think these verses are apt because they tell us the kind of person she no doubt wanted her son to be. These verses go, "Fill each hour with kind thoughts of brothers. Let no dark dreams intrude on now. Think only to serve and please others, and in so doing it now. In life's greatest contest, self-small pride ne'er should cloud our peaceful brow. Enjoy what you may, God's blue sky. Sing, smile, laugh, and do your best now." Robert Owen, that's the standard, said in these verses of his mother. He thought of his brothers, he did his best for them, and he did it now. How fine it is that we're honoring him for what he did, and that we are doing it in some distant day, but now.
Thank you, Chief Healer, for that great and inspiring speech. I'd like for our Executive Director and the planner of this occasion, Mr. Marty Higginstrand, at this point, if he will, come forward now and direct the rest of this ceremony, if he will.
Thank you, Earl. The next item on the program is a recording extracted from a tape made in 1937, I believe, 39, I'm sorry, when Senator Owen was reminiscing on Indian Day in Oklahoma City. He was at that time, I believe, 83 years old. My math is hurried. This is a very hurried math right now. And he was speaking, of course, of his mother, his past history, and so on. This is just a short extract of the tape.
my Indian memories was a mother who was a part Cherokee Indian and who named my brother Colonna, a Cherokee name, and named me Okanistata, by which name the Cherokee still call me, Okanistata. Yes, Indian memory days, and that mother of Indian blood was the cause which led me 60 years ago in 79 to come to the Cherokee country. I entered at Fort Smith. I went to Camp Creek where my mother's sister, Jane Britton, and Dr. Britton lived, and Wilson Britton, the son, and others. And I went from there on horseback to her half-sister, Emma Wilson Breedlove, in Delaware County. And from there on horseback, I rode to the Grand Saline, where the Cherokee Orphan Asylum stood, and took charge as principal teacher of 175 students, while Ruff Simpson was presided as superintendent, a grand and glorious old gentleman, and where Felix McNair was the physician. And many of the teachers there and students I still remember. Yes, Indian memory days. After I had served at the Orphan Asylum, I then became a member of the Cherokee Board of Education on horseback. I visited the common schools, there were hundreds of them, and I visited the high schools, the male seminaries, the female seminaries, as well as the Orphan Asylum. About 4,000 pupils were under my supervision as secretary of the Board of Education. Oh yes, Indian memories are many in my life. I remember those who were the principal chiefs of governors. I come back to the one person of Indian blood who influenced my life beyond all other influences combined. That is Martha Chisholm, the daughter of Tom Chisholm, the granddaughter of John D. Chisholm, the great-great-great-granddaughter of Okanistata, the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation east of Mississippi River, also whom I was named. Yes, her influence was a vast influence over my life, teaching me lessons of morality and religion and manners, teaching me ambition, teaching me care, teaching me respect for others, teaching me my relationship to the divine power that brought me into this world. From her I learned, when I came into this world, what this world really meant.
Now, if Mr. Keeler and Mr. Clay would step down to the object in front here, they have certain little duties to perform.
May I suggest that the audience will form a line, if you wish, and take your time, as much time as you want to read the inscriptions. It's on this. The front is here. If you wish to start here, you can start here and go to the right, around it.
There's one more task to be performed by Mr. Keeler and Mr. Clay. If the audience will sort of move away from those pine trees that are be planted over there, because the thought of Mr. Pierce, incidentally, that 2 trees be planted on this occasion, one to be planted by Mr. Keeler and one to be planted by Mr. Clay. And they would become, of course, permanent and living parts of this particular situation. monument. So Mr. Clay and Mr. Keeler will step to a tree respectively. Yes. As soon as the ceremonial planning here is finished. The turkey and
Now may the faith and the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, the communion of the Holy Spirit be with us all now and forevermore.